Return to Monkey Island was everything I hoped it would be at first. I'm someone who grew up with and has probably played nearly every point-and-click game ever made. Adventure games are my bread and butter, my favourite genre of games in existence. But it's a genre that has been starved for quality over the past few years. Thimbleweed Park was a sort of return to form outside of something I want to talk about whenever I get around to that critique, but other than Beyond a Steel Sky, it's been a bit barren. Even the ever-present Sherlock Holmes games seem to have dried up along with Telltale Games, so hearing about the shock release of Return to Monkey Island along with discovering Ron Gilbert was helming it, you should know that I was initially as giddy as a schoolgirl to get me hands on it, and the second it hit Gamepass, I was even more excited. And that's where I've spent my last 3 weeks, going through it, not getting any hints and persevering like the old days. Gameplay-wise, it's like a nostalgic hit to the face. You do the usual, you talk to everyone, experiencing the funny dialogue, pick everything up you can, combine items, and even struggle sometimes to use them in the correct way. We have lots of returning locations and characters who, for the most part, have aged and shown growth. That is, everyone except our returning protagonist, Guybrush Threepwood, and his arch-nemesis pirate captain LeChuck. They are trapped in a midlife crisis, trying to rekindle their youths by becoming more morally ambiguous twats than they were in the old days. And their characterization suffers for it throughout the whole game. They should both be punished as the climax approaches a final end, but unfortunately us, the players, are robbed of anything fitting or dramatic, as the game creator seems to have pulled the same tired old shit he's now done too many times, leaving everyone bitterly disappointed yet again, and closing off an absolutely amazing game which would have been heralded as one of the best in the genre, with an atrocious fart in a lift that lingers too long in your memory because of how unsatisfactory it actually is, especially when you consider what exactly was being built up during the course of the game. But that discussion is for the end of this video. For now, let's start at the beginning with the Prelude. Even at 8 or 9, whenever I first played through and completed Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge, I was left confused and upset with the ending when it seemed like Guybrush and LeChuck were actually brothers at a theme park playing games. My young mind just couldn't get past the saft bait and switch cop art, and I thought upon hearing that Return would start at that point that we would at least get a satisfying conclusion to that stupid ending, bypassing the somewhat mediocre sequels that come after it. But alas, it's yet another bait and switch, something of a recurring theme it seems with this work, as like Homer's pig flying through the air covered in shit, you do end up keep saying, "It's still good, it's still good," as you play through the very enjoyable gameplay experience. But looking back, this Prelude was just setting you up for the inevitable disappointment to come in future as you play through the start of the game with whom you think is young Guybrush and Chucky. You buy some scurvy dogs, do a running race, steal from an old couple to feed the duck, and make a wish in a wishing well, learning the general concepts and controls of the game, along with discovering how to pick up, use and combine items before eventually finding your real parents, getting hit with the big revelation that you're Guybrush's son as he is sat on a bench seemingly bored out of his skull, and Chucky is literally just a friend. So this isn't a sequel to the second game, no, it's just a continuation of them all, it seems, as Guybrush sits his son down and tells him an old story about his pirate days. A story of how he found the secret of Monkey Island, which then leads us on to Chapter 1, A Friendly Place. And what a friendly place it is. Nostalgia smacks you right in the kisser as Guybrush emerges at the lookout fireplace and talks about his newfound quest with the old man lookout. This is the point. People would create a meme of people in a bar tossing beer around and cheering like they did during the Game of Thrones. It's that nostalgic a scene, and it instantly gets you geared up after the iconic music and title screen. Guybrush is looking for a crew and a vessel to sail to Monkey Island in search of its fabled secret. But many years have now passed. LeChuck, it seems, is at port recruiting for the same voyage, and the three new pirate leaders seemingly don't give a toss about you or him, so they basically ignore you and refuse to fund your voyage, meaning you now have some goals to complete on Melee Island, just like you did in the first game. Only this time, you're not completing 3 trials, you're just looking to stow away on LeChuck's ship. Flashbacks to Monkey Island 1 emerge as you meet your old cookmate in the back, then go around town meeting Elaine, who is putting up scurvy flyers. Elaine acts really weird this entire game, like there is something off about her, and the way Guybrush is retelling her side of the story. I'll talk more about Elaine later, but you are married at this point and doing your own things. That's all you have to know for now. The Voodoo Lady has a store though. That's usually the first place you'll visit. Wally has a map store here. Otis is back in jail along with Stan of all people, as animated as ever with his hand waving, but has been locked up for a pyramid scheme, it seems. Loom Guy is still floating around the scum bar. Carla is now the governor of the island, and then there is the new folk. You have the locksmith who creates keys for you, along with the museum owner, who I still think should have been Meat Hook. He is mysteriously absent from this entire game, which is a shame. The only other new character is LeChuck's first mate, who is recruiting crewmates at the dock, as Guybrush, you're barred from entering outright, so you need to find a way to change your appearance. A bog standard eye patch won't do, it turns out, and you also need a mop, as the only position you're capable of doing is swabby. So there's your goals. Find a mop and a disguise, which is very interesting as you end up scouting around the entire island, doing various quests for people until you eventually get the items you need to progress. There were a couple of areas I got stuck on here, as I didn't visit the Voodoo Lady's shop enough times, thus didn't buy all the items she has for sale at first. See, buying the frog, which helps with apologies, was an item I was missing for a long time and only found out about by messing around and checking every nook and cranny. But then I also got stuck writing a sorry note to Carla, who it turns out won't just receive it off you, but because I've been dotting around everywhere, I did recognise some of the things you can write on it at first, but I wasn't sure where I'd seen them, so I did end up just wandering around the island again until I found the poster and bust that help you out. That was, in all honesty, it though. The rest were very easy to figure out, I felt, as someone whom is a veteran to point and click adventure games, but it's when you first come across the mop tree that Guybrush really starts to become off. See, Guybrush has always been a bit of a Han Solo-esque lovable rogue, right? He's a bit of a bumbling, morally ambiguous fool, but he's your avatar into this world, so you kind of accept him for who he is, right? He doesn't tend to go out of his way to destroy or harm people. They are usually just accidents, right? Well, the mop tree is where I really sat back and went, what the fuck's going on here then? As it's not a funny scene, or it's trying to be and I'm not part on the joke, but I generally don't think it's meant to be funny. I think this is the first part where you're meant to turn on Guybrush as a character, because this tree almost has an angelic quality about it. There's a glow coming off it, and the animals are almost worshipping this tree. All he has to do is remove a branch, but Guybrush hacks away at this tree for hours, completely destroying it as the wildlife all cower in the bushes watching Michael Myers brutally destroying this angelic object with a knife. It's genuinely terrifying to see the destruction he has caused, as all that's left is a stump, and he only has a small brush handle that is arm's length at best. The animals are terrified and he don't say a thing. You can't even try to do anything with them. I genuinely sat back at this point, scratched my head and went, alright, guess we're going for this sort of story, are we? As I kind of clocked into the fact he's in a midlife crisis, looking for purpose in a world that has mostly forgotten about him, and one where his wife is not only more popular, but she basically seems to do all the work, meaning he is a stay-at-home house husband who literally does nothing all day, and this is his last hurrah. And I cop that because that's basically me. I am a stay-at-home house husband / father whose wife brings in all the money for us to live, as she has a very good position, and I sit at home all day doing basically nothing, looking for a purpose or something meaningful to do. Only difference between me and Guybrush, if he was real, would be that he doesn't have computer games to keep his mind active, so he has to look for other ways to pass his time, and the secret of Monkey Island is his obsession. LeChuck, it turns out, has the same obsession. That's something that definitely will pop up again later. But that is Guybrush's arc for this entire game. Like Henry Jones seeking the Holy Grail and neglecting his son, we see Guybrush do some very heinous acts over the course of this game on his last crusade, stealing from a museum on more than one occasion, letting out re-offending prisoners, and even destroying more property or hurting people. You really begin to see Guybrush become a massive twat over the course of this game, but once you've got your mop and disguise, you're allowed onto LeChuck's ship, and Chapter 2 begins. A dangerous journey. Guybrush is on a ship, he is with a crew, they are sailing for Monkey Island once again, and this is where more nostalgia kicks in as you realise the game is a bit of an amalgamation of Monkey Island 1 and 2 crammed together. Yes, this is a soft reboot of sorts, and it was at this point I joked to my dad that we would get to Monkey Island for Chapter 3, then we wouldn't find the secret there, instead we would have to dot about little islands to find parts of the secret before the game would end at a theme park for the final climax between Guybrush and LeChuck. Those were my exact bloody words to him as he'd come up on the Sunday like he always does to see the grandkids. And we were playing together through this part of the game together on the ship, a twist from when I was younger, as he would be the one playing the game and I would be following along with the story or helping out with clues before I went on to play them myself. But the chapter starts with Guybrush on the ship below deck, instructed to swab up everything. There's a few chickens down here, along with Murray the talking skull, whom is stowed away on the ship by the pirate leaders, as they are secretly after the secret of Monkey Island themselves and are following LeChuck's ship. He don't say much to begin with, and there's not much to do down here. You core escape through the door, so you have to get out through the porthole, and it ends up being pretty obvious how you get out when you realise what you have to work with down there. So out you pop and you come onto deck, being introduced to LeChuck's crew, who I really like as characters. There's Iron Rose, the first mate, Flair, the midshipman who enjoys writing music, Putra, the cook who wants to be known as a chef, Apple Bob, who's always hanging from the rigging but is pretty bored, and Flambe, the lookout who's a bit lazy and loves food. LeChuck has the same objective as you. He wants a potion crafted to get them to Monkey Island as fast as possible, so tasks you with getting a flattened skull. Murray is the only one you know of at that point, so he will have to do, meaning you toddle back down to your room, pick up Murray, then flatten him with a trouser press you've had to just fix up. Soon as you put Murray in the cauldron though, Gullet pops up to scold you for buggering off and knocks the potion over, getting himself thrown overboard, and meaning you get a promotion along with the task of creating a new potion. But the crew ain't that bothered, as they don't see any value in the treasure itself. They see it as a LeChuck only treasure hunt, not beneficial enough for the crew in terms of reward, so they sort of mutiny, deciding not to bother even brewing the potion and decide to basically carry on doing their own things at sea whilst LeChuck sits in his cabin complaining about Guybrush in his diary. So it's up to you to get the crew to change their votes without creating the potion and heading to Monkey Island, as once you look through the spyglass you see the pirate leaders brewing their own potion and realise you could just follow them. So you go through the ship, complete all the tasks for everyone, along with discovering Gullet is in the helm underwater, meaning yes, you can spin the wheel of the ship and crush him for fun, but here I seem to breeze through everything as the tasks were that thought-provoking. Much like the ship parts in other Monkey Island games, these are filler chapters, I feel, and once you've got people to change their vote along with getting LeChuck's map, all you have to do is fire Murray's skull off to the pirate leaders for you to be on your way. It's an okay chapter, but story-wise it realistically offers nothing but getting to know LeChuck's crew. The best part happening at the end when you're celebrating the voyage with the crew and you accidentally take off your eye patch, revealing yourself to be Guybrush, angering LeChuck, causing an insult sword fight, and him getting off a great zippy comeback which tosses Guybrush overboard. And suddenly, into Chapter 3, Return to Monkey Island. The titular chapter of the game. Someone would think that this would be it, that this would be the final chapter, but for me it felt way too short at this point, and that's why I was so certain there was much more game to come after it. And yes, this is once again a very small chapter, but it is once again another bit of a nostalgia hit. You are underwater, you arrive by Monkey Island on the beach, and you follow LeChuck's map you stole. Turns out the map was fake. You fall into the pirate leader's trap and get covered in a root beer. LeChuck's weakness. The pirate leaders didn't think you'd steal LeChuck's fake map they had made by Wally, so in exchange for getting you down, use you to find out where the real secret of Monkey Island is buried. To do that, they need to make another map, and you're instructed to find out LeChuck's theme song, his favourite meal, and catchphrase. Of course, they will betray you when you've done it, but Guybrush still thinks he can betray them, even though he's constantly been flying on luck and coincidence so far. But off you toddle around Monkey Island, quickly discovering there's not many places to visit. There's 3 beaches, one of which has your old ship you cannonballed many years ago, the other beach you landed on, and the other has LeChuck's ship ported at it. But other than the Lookout Rock you fell off years prior, there's nothing here but a bunch of skulls to pick up. There's no Herman again, even though I suppose in canon he is off the island at this point, if they are keeping the other previous games canon. But there's no cannibals here either, because they are also on the other island now because of those previous games. Meaning this island is a bit dead nostalgia-wise, and it means as you're playing through it, you're just left dejected and disappointed as there's nothing fun about this chapter. I'm glad it's really the shortest one, as getting LeChuck's 3 things are super easy in all honesty. The hardest part is getting the disguise good enough to trot back onto LeChuck's ship. Once you're on there though, he's books in his cabin, the chef cooks up his food, and a voting bell means you can just grab the music. I literally breezed through this entire section in about 45 minutes. Even the skull clues to play music weren't hard. In fact, the only funny part of the tale story-wise was LeChuck actually finding a mop tree on Monkey Island because of the map we swapped out. But anyway, once you've done the spell for the map, a huge gigantic earthquake happens, causing chaos all over the Caribbean. So that's more damage your Crusaders caused, and once that's over, the pirate leaders have a gander at the map and kick you off the lookout point along with tossing away Murray. They haven't got the map as it was in Murray's mouth, but they know where to go regardless. What happened to Guybrush? Well, if you remember Monkey Island, they are rubber trees down there, so no doubt he bounced around all over the shop down there and eventually landed on the stump. His bones look a little broken, but remember, this is a story he's telling to his son. And this is the dramatic all hope has failed midpoint. Of course, LeChuck pops up to brag and say goodbye before hunting down the pirate leaders, and then out of nowhere Elaine suddenly appears somehow. Apparently, she knows how to get to Monkey Island without a potion, but she only got dropped off, so has no ship back. She does miraculously have a boat fixing manual, though, for you to fix up your old boat. Everything suddenly seeming a bit too convenient at this point, foreshadowing no doubt, but regardless, you suddenly de-break your bones, fix up your new vessel, and go back to Melee Island in a matter of minutes to see the atrocities your Crusaders caused. And it won't be the last atrocity either. As we head into Chapter 4, things get complicated. Which they do, as this is basically the main game. Everything done up to this point, the entire last 4 chapters, was basically a tutorial, as this is where the game really opens up and you suddenly have multiple layered puzzles to complete over a wide range of islands with lots of locations to visit and many things to keep track of. This is where I got stuck for the vast majority of my playtime of this game. The other chapters I did over a couple of days. This part took me weeks, and I'm not afraid to admit that, as I wandered around every island trying to discover what to do, forgetting parts as the days suddenly went by until they suddenly came back to me. Story-wise though, this is where Guybrush shows himself to really be a full-on twat this game, not bothered about causing multiple atrocities and tunnel visioned on his crusade. You see, Melee Island is destroyed, the scumbar is gone, the people are all clambering for disaster relief, which ain't worth the paper it's printed on, and Guybrush seemingly doesn't care about anyone or the damage he's caused. He can't even be bothered to wait in line for the governor. He just barges through into her house demanding stuff to help his crusade. Now, it's funny at first, but when you step backwards and realise he's caused this, you really question his logic and lack of morals. But your goal this time around is to find some keys to open the secret locked box inside the Voodoo Lady's shop. The secret, it seems, has been there all along, and people have been hunting down keys for a long time to open it. One of which is an old woman, Whitey Bones, who lets you know where to start looking from the rumours she's heard, and the cranky old woman, I feel, is important to understand the nature of Fruitless Crusades, where she doesn't realistically have nothing but one key after years of devotion, and she has all but given up and is living whatever life she has left. That ties in with a theme and what Guybrush should be focusing on, you see, but for now he's intent on finding all the keys, even though it's apparently fruitless and dangerous. And you meet up with the old pirate leaders who now run a fishing shop and have a secret clique of anglers who each tell stories, one of which you need to complete to be able to get a secret map. Then you need to rob the museum again, only this time he's using replicas. That part was, in all honesty, the hardest part for me to work out, and it realistically shouldn't have been, but hey ho, you don't think of the easiest things sometimes in these games, but you are not just stuck on Melee, you can sail out to other islands. One is yours and Elaine's home, as it has lime trees on it which combat scurvy, her latest dedicated quest, as she likes to help people out. And this part is probably the best part to talk about Elaine, as she is off character-wise this entire game. I get that she has her own quest, and she knows that you're a bored husband doing nothing, and so lets you go off and do your own things. But because this is Guybrush telling a story to his son, Elaine feels a bit, well, lovey-dovey. Too much, in fact. She's not the same Elaine. There was always an Indiana Jones and Marion on-off again fling about these two, but Elaine for me was what most women seem to want in computer games these days. She was a strong female character who took no shit from anyone. Basically never needed rescuing, she could handle that herself. She was a bloody good governor of an island. She also tended to fix all the damage Guybrush ended up causing, but was never this, oh, love you honey bunny type character who laughed half his misdeeds in previous games. She was the rock that sort of held everything together, and her characterization seems a bit of an afterthought here. Yes, you can put it down to the storytelling of Guybrush. If we describe our wives to our kids or other men, it is one or the other, right? She's either absolutely amazing or an absolute swine, or is telling you off for little things, and I could forgive the former if the latter came into play once in a while, but it never does, and it's so disappointing, even though there is one hint about their relationship being a bit strained. See, she has a picture on her desk, but your half of the photo is ripped off and missing, and she can't be bothered to fetch it. She knows near enough where it's gone, but she's not bothered about going for it, and uses the story of how some bird just robbed off with it one day. How convenient. It's almost like the bird's nest is right below her base, and once you disappeared on your silly quest, she ripped up the photo and threw it down there and is trying to fix your messes you keep causing, especially since over the course of the chapter you get these little meanwhile later scenes where Elaine is learning about the destruction you've caused over the course of the game, and even at the end of the chapter when you're basically alone together and she knows everything, she doesn't scold you once or try to put you off your stupid crusade. It's almost like Elaine, or the real Elaine anyway, isn't there, and this Elaine is a figment of Guybrush's imagination or bad storytelling, so I guess it can be washed away, but the game lacks for it, I feel. For me, it would have been more interesting to see an older and wiser Elaine not taking his shit anymore. I also think she should have been pregnant at this stage, so as she had some sort of tether to Guybrush, which meant she was trying to work things out and not just be sick to death of his shit all the while, so she couldn't just sling him out on his ear because she wants their eventual son to have a decent family dynamic upbringing. But the Elaine presented here just leaves you wishing for more. Anyway, you scoot off around the island, causing more damage as you overthrow a queen and dismantle the crown in front of all the populace the second you get hold of it. See, it's got one of the keys embedded inside of it, and suddenly you craft a workers' republic that will cause an entire island's governance to explode, no doubt, or at least implode, because no one seems to know what a workers' republic does and means. But you just toddle off, you break out Stan from prison after increasing his sentence, which means he's now a fugitive of the law, and he can try to track down his old accountant, whom is hiding on a small island, fearing for his life, which means Stan probably will go after him. So that's another issue on you. Stan also helps Elaine create a poster for her scurvy problem, which will no doubt increase lime sales. He, of course, expects a cut, because he's still as shady a twat as always, but you basically rob a dead woman's possessions and don't give them back to her relative, along with destroying a dead woman's ship on the bottom of the ocean floor, taking the key but not telling anyone else where she's actually buried, along with the fishing location that is prime. Whilst this is going on, the old woman has her key stolen by LeChuck and taken back to his ship, so you just steal that one for yourself also, heading on board, not listening to the old woman's plea for you to give up the quest and let it go, before lastly heading to Terror Island, where you end up finding Herman Toothrot, a bloke you just leave for dead after stealing his key. So can we fully admit now that Guybrush is a cunt, yeah? Because if anyone had any doubts about his lackadaisy, whimsical, don't care attitude, I'm pretty sure Chapter 4's occurrences are there to state outright that you should not be rooting for this man right now, and him telling his story to his own child is creating terrible morals. Meanwhile, as this is all going on, LeChuck and the pirate leaders who teamed up have been screwing each other over, killing each other as they get closer to the prize, and once Guybrush goes back to the Voodoo Lady's shop to open up the box, he discovers there's another golden box inside of it that needs yet another bloody key. Fuck's sake, I remember shouting as I watched Guybrush struggle to open the treasure box. That, of course, gets stolen right away by LeChuck, and I do like the little count to 100 game he forces you to play along with before you're allowed to hunt him down, and Elaine, of course, comes to your rescue yet again. Of course, she can get to Monkey Island without a potion, coincidentally, so off you toddle onto the actual final part. Chapter 5, Beneath the Monkey Head. This is the part where Elaine should realistically scold you for all the damage you've caused. Guybrush, of course, has excuses prepared. Remember, every villain of every good story thinks they are doing the right thing after all. But Elaine leaves him be, as she has to deal with LeChuck's crew, along with her being a nonsensical dozy cow these days, and so off you go into the Monkey Head to face down LeChuck and discover the secret. Of course, it's not that easy. There are some trials to go through, but you also see Wally tied up over the lava pit. Now, I wanted to save him at this point, but of course, evil Guybrush doesn't give a shit. Then, as you venture through the lava, you meet Flambe, who basically tells you LeChuck and Guybrush deserve each other before buggering off, and he's quite right. Everything that both of you have done is evil at this point in time. You're two wrestling heels going for the same title. There is no good guy here. But this chapter is once again relatively short and not that hard to work out puzzle-wise. I did get stuck at the ending part for a little while, but that's only because I couldn't quite tell which faces were on the plinths with my partial blindness. I got the tablet part and I got all the 3 sequence parts pretty much straight away. I just didn't quite catch that you could pick them back up off the models at first, and so had to do a bit of backtracking, but overall I thought it was a fine bit of gameplay leading into the final tablet puzzle. It was funny seeing Guybrush constantly bragging about getting LeChuck and him pulling down the lever to stop him every time, meaning you had 3 pretty meaningless puzzles to go through because of your ignorance. Another hint towards Guybrush's stupid nature and his tunnel vision whilst he's been on this crusade. But story-wise, there's really not much here. You see LeChuck open up the doorway, eventually escaping with the treasure. Leela, the only surviving pirate leader at this point, chasing after him as another earthquake goes off, causing a cave-in. And all that's left for you to do is then work out the spinning tablet puzzle. Once you do, though, you're done. You go through the doorway. And now we come on to the ending. Endings, in gaming especially, shouldn't be difficult to write. Gaming is such a new medium when compared to books, plays, films or television that we haven't realistically tapped the full potential of what they can offer just yet. But if you break them down, they are just stories at the end of the day, and most game fans aren't asking for Citizen Kane or 2001: A Space Odyssey. Most gamers have probably never even seen that rubbish to be disappointed with yet. So you can get away with safe endings. Half the time I'd say you can get away with copying, but going cheesy and predictable works for gamers, as it's a satisfactory payoff for the hours of enjoyment spent playing through something. Every COD game you expect the Yanks or British to succeed. Every God of War you expect Kratos to kill a god. Every Pokemon game sees you become champion of that region. Every Mario game, he saves a princess. Gamers enjoy simple endings. I'm not saying you could have a twist where the villain wins. No, if it leads on to another, that's great. But gamers still want an end. What they don't want is a cop-out where Guybrush discovers he's in a fantasy theme park run by Stan and Elaine is waiting for him to switch the lights off so they can go home, only to be told off by Guybrush's son that he is terrible at creating endings before running off with Mummy, leaving Guybrush sat on the bench alone and bored because that's the long-running joke with the creator. People feel dejected and disappointed when that happens, and I've seen plenty criticisms online saying the same thing. Because when I finish this, in fact the second Guybrush pops out on Melee Island's church rear door, I took my hand off my controller, put it near my mouth to cover it, breathed deeply, and quietly said, "Fucking hell," looking very angry, but also trying not to show it or say anything too loud as all my kids are in the living room at the same time. So I just sat there disappointed, because I knew what was coming at this point. I didn't know the extent of the damage exactly, but the second I didn't see LeChuck facing off against Leela in the next room, or even him suddenly snogging Leela, a sudden revelation which would have been less convoluted or confusing than the ending we were given, I knew I was going to be unsatisfied. And I knew deep down that my time spent here, time that was enjoyable, gameplay-wise, was going to be put into question. So I walked around, met Stan, got the keys, talked to Elaine, nabbed the key off the locksmith to open the chest and found the fabled Monkey Island secret. All I got was this stupid shirt. A tired, old, replayed joke once again. Even a dirty, old, mouldy banana would have been better. But in this modern world, your expectations have to be subverted, don't they? It's the journey and the friends we made along the way. You had fun playing, right? Right? So I understand sort of what they were going for. I get that the Monkey Island world as Guybrush sees it doesn't exist. I get that Guybrush might just be a caretaker on Stan's pirate theme park and nothing is real. I can get us still being trapped in LeChuck's cursed place at the end of Monkey Island 2. There's many interpretations, right? This exists to put a fork in the Monkey Island series and call it done. last hurrah for fans to now go away and play something else. Remember the good times and memories you had with all the entries. You have even multiple endings here to suit your needs, one of which is ignoring reality and going back to the world that was. It's the creators leaving everything up to you, the player. But for me, it's fucking shit. And it comes across more as a two-fingered salute to everyone who attacked the creators on Twitter when they showed off the new art style, which I actually love, by the way. This is a perfect modern interpretation of sprites for me. I was never a fan of Kirsty's anime style or the 3D softness of Escape. In fact, even though it's a bad series of games overall, I feel Tales got the art style just right and Return perfects it. But this does seem like a stuff you to those people who were being nasty to the creators. The ending feels bitter and spiteful. It doesn't even close the story off with the themes and narrative that were being built up during the game. The new pirate leaders, except for Leela, are presumed dead. LeChuck's crew are basically missing at this point. Wally is still hanging over the lava, and both Guybrush and LeChuck's obsession is not resolved. Meaning this game, which is no doubt the last, is the most meaningless game in the entire series. And yet, it's the one where a middle-aged, crisis-ridden Guybrush caused the most damage to the Monkey Island world. A statement could have been made here. A real nail for the coffin, as the no doubt vast majority of this game's player base, or the ones whom cared anyway, are between the ages of 45 and 65. I'm 38, but I've got young parents. They had me at the age of 18, which means my dad is now 56. My uncle, who also loved point-and-click adventure games, the bloke who bought most of the ones I played and loved when I was younger, is 59. They were in their 20s when they played Monkey Island, and they are the ones whom deserved a great ending about a middle-aged Guybrush coming to terms with his place in life and realising his crusade has caused lots of damage and should rightly end. The entire game has taken cues from bloody Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, so why the bloody hell did it not steal its ending? There's an earthquake, everything's collapsing, LeChuck and Leela are fighting, the treasure chest falls into a lower ledge, Leela tries to grab it and falls into the lava or an abyss. Guybrush then goes after it. Elaine and LeChuck try to help him, but as he's going to fall, he has to let go. And he does. Yes, LeChuck's angry with him, cursing him once again as he toddles off to do something else. But Elaine isn't. And they leave, go on to have a child, and Guybrush has to pay for his crimes, even becoming a caretaker at a theme park where he gets to tell his stories of his past adventures to anyone willing to listen. That's the ending I feel we were robbed of as fans. There could have been a lesson here for his son, whom he's telling the story to, about chasing dreams but not letting them control you or hurt those you love. Even if it wasn't exactly true, it doesn't even matter. That's the point of stories we tell our children, as you hope they learn some morality. But we don't get that here. Instead, we get one that ends the Monkey Island series on a whimper, along with this video ending on a meme, as my disappointment was immeasurable and my day was ruined. Thanks everyone who's gotten this far. Please let me know your thoughts on Return to Monkey Island in the comment section, and watch this video here for more critiques, along with leaving me a like. Thank you.